Welcome again to our Sakata vegetable production series, where we tell you everything about vegetables A to Z. Today we're talking about tomatoes, determinate and indeterminate. What's the difference? When should you use which one? Johan is going to tell us a little bit more, and then you can make sure that you don't plant the wrong tomato. Johan, how are you doing?
Fine yourself, Andre?
No, very well, thank you. Okay, determinate, indeterminate. It sounds like Greek to me. Please, let me know. Okay, tell me a little bit what is the difference between the two, and when will I use which cultivar?
Okay, so basically the determinate varieties, mostly for open field conditions. They grow, depending also on the variety, you get strong determinate varieties and varieties that can grow a little bit taller, which we tend to call them semi-determinate varieties, but yes, they are genetically more to the determinate varieties. So they grow anything from 1 meter to 1.5 meters, relatively concentrated set. And then what happens is, right at a certain determined time, then they end basically in a flower truss. Yeah. Where that makes a flower truss, it makes the fruit, and then there's no more growing points developing out of that plant, and then it basically self-terminates. So it grows up to a certain point, and no matter what you do to that plant, it will not continue to grow.
And the indeterminate, does it just keep growing?
Yes, indeterminate, you will always have a flower truss or then a growing point, and the indeterminate varieties always makes a new growing point. So as long as you can keep that plant healthy, it will continue making new growing points and setting new fruit. And that's where the indeterminate varieties mostly used for under protection, and specifically the plastic tunnels, where you can literally, on the indeterminate varieties, you can harvest for 11 months. So or even longer, but yeah.
It's almost like if you take a determinate, is basically like, if I can bring it back, it's like a millie or maize, where you've got a certain growth period, it grows a certain height, makes its fruit, end of story.
Yes.
Where indeterminate is more like a tree at the end of the day, where it just keeps growing and coming back.
Basically.
So
yes,
that's almost the same type of concept.
Yes, that's the same. If you want to explain it like that, it's a good concept, yes.
Okay, right. So that's the difference between the two. So, and then under netting or protection, you would say, okay, cool, I can go for the indeterminate because it's protected, it will just keep growing, keep making fruit, because you can control the environment to an extent. And when I go open field, where everything is just, it's rain, it's sun, everything is hitting it, we go determinate when we know, okay, cool, we go for this growing period, we need to get to fruit at that stage, and also I can determine exactly when I need to be in the market, more or less, and which will determine my planting date and so forth.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. And the determinates is also, a lot of them, I cannot stress it enough, your market. Some markets will accept determinate quality fruit, others have to have indeterminate quality fruit. So even if you have open field, you can use some of the indeterminate varieties in open field. They require a lot more management and trellising and pruning sometimes than the determinate ones. But if your market requires indeterminate quality, then you cannot plant a determinate. But for a lot of, in South Africa specifically, we've still got a huge market for your determinate varieties. For me, it's better tasting. The plants in general have better disease resistance, so they are hardy, they are adapted to the South African conditions, so they do much better in the open field than, for instance, some of the indeterminate varieties, which was almost developed for under protection. So you can grow it there, but it's very likely that you can going to run into problems with the indeterminates. And I always say to some of the farmers is, with the determinate, you've got a final cutoff point. You say, up to this date, I'm harvesting, and then I'm done and dusted. With the indeterminate, there's always hope. But at the end of the day, you can start spraying yourself bankrupt or fertilizing yourself bankrupt. You've made money up to a point, you need to terminate the crop. But there's always, with the indeterminate, there's always another truss that you think you're going to harvest.
And you never know when to stop.
And you never know when to stop. And then at the end of the day, you've got less money in your pocket than growing a determinate, having a set period of harvest, getting a good yield, and finishing
It's
that.
almost like they talk about miners. They say all miners die poor
Yeah.
because of exactly
Yes.
because of that.
Yes.
They don't know
keep
when
on
to
digging.
stop.
Yeah.
Just one final thing. You're talking about trellising. Is that basically where you take the crop and you help it to
Yes.
to grow up?
Yeah, so there's two terminologies that I have to explain if you talked about determinate and indeterminate. With determinate, all the tomatoes is trellised,
Yes.
except if it's maybe a processing type which grows on the ground, then there's no trellising involved. Then we've got two different types of trellising. The determinate ones is mostly what we can basically call the Spanish system, is where you just grow the plant and you've got ropes on the side of the plant that support the plant and it grows upright. Here it's more of a Dutch system where you've got a single wire or a single string and you've got a single or a double stem depending on the plant, but a single or double stem that's coming from the supporting wire at the top. So that's trellising. There's different ways of trellising, and then we talk about pruning. Now on the determinate varieties, you don't prune at all.
Yeah.
If you prune a determinate, you just cut away yield. Those varieties were designed for the fruit size and all of that to support a multiple stem plant. It can have 6 or 7 stems growing upright, and all of those stems will bear fruit to a more or lesser extent. But if you cut one out, pruning, you're just cutting away yield. With the indeterminate varieties, we can decide if we're going to trellis one or we're going to prune to single stem or double stem, and then we need to break out all the side shoots. So it's very labor intensive to get the best quality. If we leave too much leaves, it's too vegetative. If we put up too much fruit, it's too generative. So we have to have a nice balance, and that you can do with a pruning. Either pruning a truss or pruning leaves, but we want then to manage the plant for the period that we want to harvest.
So, okay. Determinate is tomatoes for dummies. And indeterminate is tomatoes for the experts.
If you could say it like that. You could say it like
Awesome, Jan. Thank you very much.
Perfect, thanks.
Right, okay, so now you know the determinate or indeterminate, what's the difference, which one you should look at, and also look out for our other videos. Specifically, we did one on netting and open field, what the differences are there and which one you use where. If you've got any questions, pop them down in the comments, or we'll put a link up on top or below for Sakata, and then you can get in contact with them if you've got any questions. Look out, till next time, cheers.